Courtrooms have always been a unique stage where the drama of human life unfolds in its most unvarnished form. Here, the stakes are high, the tension is palpable, and the outcomes can be life-altering. In these hallowed halls, where every word and gesture is laden with consequence, the rawest aspects of humanity come to the fore. From the solemn pronouncements of ancient judges to the high-profile trials of contemporary celebrities, the courtroom is a microcosm of society, reflecting its values, conflicts, and aspirations. The fascination with courtroom drama is nothing new. Even in ancient times, trials like those of Socrates and Galileo were pivotal events that encapsulated the philosophical and scientific struggles of their eras. Socrates, standing before an Athenian jury, chose to drink hemlock rather than renounce his teachings, embodying the conflict between individual conscience and societal norms. Galileo's trial before the Roman Catholic Inquisition, for advocating the heliocentric model of the universe, epitomized the clash between scientific inquiry and religious dogma. These historic trials continue to resonate because they underscore the timeless tension between progress and tradition, truth and power. Here are some of the most incredible moments in court. The trial of O.J. Simpson, 1995. The trial of O.J. Simpson in 1995 is often considered one of the most incredible moments in courtroom history for several reasons. It combined high-profile celebrity, intense media coverage, racial tensions, and dramatic legal strategies, making it a defining cultural event. O.J. Simpson was a well-known figure, both as a former NFL star and as an actor. His fame and public persona amplified the trial's visibility, drawing widespread public interest and media attention. The trial was broadcast live, turning it into a daily spectacle watched by millions. The saturation coverage by media outlets transformed the courtroom into a theater, with every detail scrutinized and debated by the public. The trial took place in Los Angeles, a city still reeling from the 1992 riots following the acquittal of police officers who had beaten Rodney King. The case tapped into deep-seated issues of race and justice in America, with Simpson, a black man, accused of murdering his white ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. Simpson's defense team, known as the Dream Team, included prominent attorneys like Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, and F. Lee Bailey. Cochran's memorable line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," became an iconic moment in the trial. One of the trial's most dramatic moments was when Simpson was asked to try on a glove found at the crime scene. The glove appeared too small for Simpson's hand, leading to Cochran's famous line. This moment was pivotal in casting doubt on the prosecution's case. The trial introduced the public to forensic evidence, such as DNA testing, which was relatively new at the time. The defense raised significant doubts about the handling and integrity of the evidence, suggesting contamination and mismanagement. These controversies over forensic evidence played a crucial role in the trial's outcome. The jury's composition and the dynamics of their deliberations were also critical elements. The jury was sequestered for 8 months, one of the longest sequesters in American history. Their eventual verdict of not guilty shocked many and sparked widespread debate about the justice system. The trial had a profound impact on American culture and the legal system. It highlighted issues of race, celebrity influence, and media coverage's effect on judicial proceedings. The trial also shaped public perceptions of the legal system and set a precedent for how high-profile cases are covered by the media. The aftermath of the trial continued to capture public attention. Simpson was later found liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman in a civil trial. Additionally, his subsequent legal troubles, including a 2007 armed robbery and kidnapping conviction, kept him in the public eye and continued to influence his legacy. The trial of Ted Bundy, 1979. The trial of Ted Bundy in 1979 was not just a legal proceeding, it was a gripping and chilling spectacle that captivated the nation and left an indelible mark on the history of criminal justice in the United States. Bundy, a charismatic law student and serial killer, was accused of brutally murdering numerous young women across several states during the 1970s. His trial in Florida for the murders of 2 sorority sisters, Lisa Levy and Margaret Bowman, and the assault of 2 others. The Bundy trial was one of the first high-profile criminal cases to receive extensive media coverage, including live broadcasts. This unprecedented level of attention turned the courtroom into a stage where the horrors of Bundy's crimes were vividly recounted and scrutinized by the public. Bundy, representing himself for parts of the trial, showcased his legal acumen and charm, which contrasted sharply with the heinous acts he was accused of committing. His ability to manipulate the courtroom and cross-examine witnesses, including survivors who bravely testified against him, added a surreal and unsettling dimension to the proceedings. The Bundy trial was one of the earliest to extensively use forensic evidence, such as dental impressions and hair samples, to link him to the crimes. This marked a significant advancement in forensic science and its application in criminal trials. Bundy's trial highlighted flaws in courtroom security and procedures. His daring escape from custody during a recess, followed by his recapture, underscored the vulnerabilities within the justice system at the time and prompted reforms in courtroom security protocols across the country. The trial became a symbol of justice for Bundy's victims and their families, as well as a broader reflection on the nature of evil and the capacity for violence within seemingly ordinary individuals. It raised profound questions about society's understanding of psychopathy and its implications for criminal behavior. The trial of the Birmingham 6, 1975 to 1991. The trial of the Birmingham 6 stands as a poignant and pivotal moment in legal history, marked by profound injustice and eventual vindication. The case involves 6 Irish men: Hugh Callaghan, Patrick Joseph Hill, Gerard Hunter, Richard McKilkenny, William Power, and John Walker, who were wrongfully convicted of carrying out pub bombings in Birmingham, England, in 1974, which resulted in the deaths of 21 people. In 1975, amidst intense public and political pressure to solve the bombings, the Birmingham 6 were arrested, charged, and swiftly convicted. The trial proceedings were marred by allegations of police misconduct, including fabricated confessions obtained under duress and suppression of exculpatory evidence. The men were sentenced to life imprisonment. The case drew significant international attention and sparked widespread protests and campaigns, highlighting concerns over miscarriages of justice, police brutality, and anti-Irish sentiment in the UK. Over the years, multiple appeals were made on behalf of the Birmingham 6, citing new evidence and procedural irregularities. In 1987, an investigation by journalists uncovered significant flaws in the prosecution's case, including withheld evidence and coerced confessions. This prompted renewed efforts to reopen the case, culminating in a series of appeals that eventually led to the quashing of their convictions by the Court of Appeal in 1991. The judges condemned the original trial as a miscarriage of justice and ordered the immediate release of the Birmingham 6 after 16 years of wrongful imprisonment. The trial of the Birmingham 6 remains a landmark case that exposed systemic failures in the criminal justice system. It spurred reforms in police practices, interrogation methods, and the handling of evidence to prevent similar miscarriages of justice in the future. The case also underscored the importance of legal safeguards, fair trials, and the presumption of innocence, serving as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of wrongful convictions. Watergate Scandal Hearings 1973. The Watergate scandal hearings of 1973 were not held in a traditional court setting but rather in congressional committees, specifically the Senate Watergate Committee and the subsequent House Judiciary Committee hearings. However, these proceedings were akin to courtroom drama in their intensity, scrutiny, and impact on American politics and society. The hearings captivated the entire nation, with extensive media coverage broadcasting the proceedings live on television. This was a groundbreaking moment as it brought the intricacies of political scandal and legal investigation directly into people's living rooms. The public watched in real time as key figures testified under oath, revealing shocking details about the abuse of power at the highest levels of government. The hearings unearthed a web of illegal activities orchestrated by members of President Richard Nixon's administration, including burglary, wiretapping, and efforts to cover up these crimes. Testimonies from insiders such as John Dean, Nixon's former White House counsel, provided damning evidence of a systematic effort to undermine democratic institutions and manipulate the political process. While not a criminal trial in the traditional sense, the hearings had profound legal implications. They underscored the importance of congressional oversight and the rule of law in holding elected officials accountable. The Judiciary Committee's deliberations on articles of impeachment against President Nixon marked a critical moment in American constitutional history, showcasing the checks and balances designed to prevent executive overreach. The hearings shattered public trust in the presidency and the government's integrity. Nixon's famous statement, "I am not a crook," during a press conference further fueled skepticism and disbelief. As evidence mounted against him, including the revelation of the White House tapes, Nixon faced inevitable impeachment and resigned from office on August 9, 1974, becoming the first U.S. president to do so. The Watergate hearings left an enduring legacy of transparency and accountability in American politics. They prompted reforms aimed at preventing future abuses of power, such as the Ethics in Government Act of 1978, which established new financial disclosure requirements for public officials and independent counsel provisions for investigating high-level misconduct. The impeachment of Bill Clinton 1999. The impeachment of Bill Clinton in 1999 was indeed a historic and remarkable moment in American legal and political history. The impeachment proceedings against President Bill Clinton were sparked by allegations of perjury and obstruction of justice related to his extramarital affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. The scandal gripped the nation, dominating headlines and dividing public opinion. It marked the second time in U.S. history that a sitting president faced impeachment proceedings, following Andrew Johnson in 1868. The impeachment process itself unfolded in the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate, where Clinton faced charges that he had lied under oath and obstructed justice during a civil lawsuit brought against him. The legal proceedings were not conducted in a traditional courtroom, but in the chambers of Congress, with senators serving as jurors and Chief Justice William Rehnquist presiding over the trial. The impeachment trial was televised live, providing unprecedented access to the inner workings of American political and legal processes. The nation was captivated as senators deliberated Clinton's fate, with each twist and turn in the trial becoming fodder for intense media coverage and public scrutiny. The impeachment of Bill Clinton tested the limits of presidential power and the constitutional mechanisms for holding elected officials accountable. It raised profound questions about the separation of powers, the role of morality in public office, and the standards of conduct expected from leaders in government. Ultimately, Bill Clinton was acquitted by the Senate on both articles of impeachment, perjury, and obstruction of justice, falling short of the required two-thirds majority vote for conviction. His acquittal marked a significant moment in American political history, demonstrating the difficulty of removing a sitting president from office through impeachment. The impeachment of Bill Clinton left a lasting impact on American politics and public discourse. It underscored the partisan divisions within Congress and the broader society, highlighting the complexities and challenges of maintaining accountability and integrity in government. Bush v. Gore 2000. Bush v. Gore, decided by the United States Supreme Court in December 2000, stands as one of the most remarkable and consequential moments in American legal and political history. The case arose from the disputed presidential election between George W. Bush, the Republican candidate, and Al Gore, the Democratic candidate. The 2000 election was extraordinarily close, particularly in the state of Florida, where the outcome would determine the winner of the presidency. As the vote recount process began, a legal battle ensued over the validity and recounting of ballots, specifically focusing on the hanging chads, and other irregularities in punch card ballots in several Florida counties. The case reached the Supreme Court of the United States after a series of lower court decisions and appeals. The central issue before the court was whether the Florida Supreme Court's order for a statewide recount of disputed ballots violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The recount was seen as necessary due to the extremely narrow margin between Bush and Gore in Florida, and thus the outcome of the entire election. The court's decision effectively ended the recount process in Florida, leading to George W. Bush being declared the winner of the state's electoral votes and thus the presidency. This decision had immediate and far-reaching consequences for American politics and policy. The court's ruling was controversial because it was split along ideological lines, with a majority of 5 conservative justices in favor of Bush and 4 liberal justices dissenting. The decision highlighted debates over judicial activism versus restraint and the role of the judiciary in resolving political disputes. Bush v. Gore generated significant public debate and criticism regarding the court's intervention in the electoral process. Critics argued that the decision undermined the principle of equal protection and raised concerns about the politicization of the judiciary. The case has had a lasting impact on American electoral law and policy, influencing discussions on voting rights, election procedures, and the role of the Supreme Court in safeguarding democratic principles. The Windrush Scandal 2018. The Windrush Scandal of 2018 was a pivotal moment in British legal and political history, rather than a traditional courtroom drama. It unfolded as a profound injustice against Caribbean immigrants who arrived in the UK after World War II, known as the Windrush generation. The scandal erupted when it was revealed that many of these individuals, who had lived in Britain legally for decades, were wrongfully detained, denied legal rights, and even deported due to changes in immigration policies. The Windrush generation had been invited to the UK to help rebuild the country after the war, and many had been granted indefinite leave to remain. However, in the early 2010s, the UK government, under pressure to tighten immigration controls, implemented a hostile environment policy. This policy required individuals to provide extensive documentation to prove their right to reside in the UK, even though many of the Windrush immigrants had arrived as children and had never been issued formal paperwork. The scandal came to light through investigative journalism and public advocacy, revealing shocking cases of individuals who had lost jobs access to healthcare, and even been wrongfully deported to countries they had not visited in decades. This sparked widespread outrage and calls for accountability. While the Windrush scandal itself did not culminate in traditional courtroom dramas for individual cases, it did prompt legal challenges and inquiries that scrutinized the government's actions. Multiple inquiries were launched, including the Windrush Lessons Learned Review and the Home Affairs Select Committee's investigation. These inquiries sought to uncover the extent of the injustices and recommend reforms to prevent such abuses in the future. The Windrush scandal was an incredible moment in the court of public opinion and in the broader legal and political discourse of the UK. It exposed systemic flaws in immigration policies and governmental practices, highlighting issues of racial discrimination and the treatment of long-term residents. The scandal led to apologies from successive UK governments, compensation schemes for victims, and legislative changes aimed at safeguarding the rights of Windrush immigrants and preventing similar injustices. Miranda v. Arizona 1966. Miranda v. Arizona 1966 stands as an incredible moment in the history of the United States Supreme Court and the broader legal landscape for its profound impact on criminal justice and civil liberties. The case originated with Ernesto Miranda, who was arrested and interrogated by police regarding his involvement in a kidnapping and rape. Miranda, despite not being informed of his rights, confessed to the crime during interrogation and was subsequently convicted based largely on his confession. The crux of Miranda's appeal to the Supreme Court rested on the argument that his confession was obtained under coercive circumstances, without adequate knowledge of his rights. The Supreme Court's landmark decision, penned by Chief Justice Earl Warren, fundamentally altered the landscape of police procedure and defendants' rights in the United States. The Supreme Court ruled that individuals in police custody must be informed of their rights before being interrogated. These rights include the right to remain silent and the right to have an attorney present during questioning. This set of warnings became known as Miranda rights or Miranda warnings. Miranda v. Arizona reinforced the Fifth Amendment protection against self-incrimination. The court emphasized that coercive police practices could lead to involuntary confessions, which are inadmissible in court. The decision in Miranda v. Arizona established a precedent that extended beyond Miranda's own case. It mandated that law enforcement agencies across the United States adopt specific procedures to protect suspects' rights during custodial interrogations. A failure to provide Miranda warnings can result in the exclusion of any resulting statements or confessions from trial. Beyond its immediate legal implications, Miranda v. Arizona sparked debates about the balance between effective law enforcement and individual rights. It became a cornerstone of criminal procedure and significantly influenced how police conduct interrogations, ensuring fairness and transparency in the justice system. Miranda warnings have permeated popular culture, appearing in countless movies, TV shows, and novels. The phrase "you have the right to remain silent" has become synonymous with legal dramas and discussions of civil liberties. Over the decades since Miranda v. Arizona, the decision has faced challenges and modifications, particularly in defining the scope and application of Miranda rights in various contexts. However, it remains a crucial safeguard against coercive interrogation practices and a symbol of the rights afforded to individuals under the Constitution. Bolotnaya Square Case 2012. The Bolotnaya Square case, which unfolded in the aftermath of protests against Vladimir Putin's re-election in 2012, stands out as an incredible moment in Russian court history due to its scale, implications for civil liberties, and international scrutiny. The Bolotnaya Square protests were among the largest demonstrations in Russia since the fall of the Soviet Union, drawing tens of thousands of people to Moscow to protest against alleged electoral fraud and Putin's continued grip on power. The subsequent clashes between protesters and police on May 6, 2012, marked a significant escalation in tensions. The aftermath of the protests saw a crackdown by Russian authorities, with hundreds of activists arrested and accused of participating in mass riots and other offenses. The Bolotnaya Square case specifically targeted more than 30 individuals, some of whom faced serious charges that carried lengthy prison sentences. The trials that followed were criticized domestically and internationally for their fairness and adherence to due process. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, condemned the trials as politically motivated and highlighted allegations of torture, forced confessions, and procedural irregularities. The Bolotnaya Square case underscored the shrinking space for political dissent and civil society activism in Russia. It became emblematic of broader concerns about freedom of assembly, expression, and the rule of law under Putin's government. The trial attracted significant international attention and condemnation, with many Western governments and organizations viewing it as a litmus test for Russia's commitment to democratic principles and human rights. The European Court of Human Rights later ruled that the actions of Russian authorities during the protests violated the rights to freedom of assembly and expression. Roe v. Wade, 1973. Roe v. Wade stands as one of the most significant and controversial decisions in the history of the United States Supreme Court, fundamentally altering the landscape of reproductive rights and igniting enduring debates over constitutional interpretation, personal autonomy, and the role of government in private matters. Before Roe v. Wade, access to abortion varied widely across the United States, with some states permitting it under certain circumstances while others outright banned the practice. The case originated when Jane Roe, a pseudonym for Norma McCorvey, challenged the Texas law prohibiting abortion except to save the life of the mother. McCorvey argued that the law violated her right to privacy, a concept derived from the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court, in a historic 7-2 decision authored by Justice Harry Blackmun, ruled in favor of Roe. The court held that a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy fell within the scope of the constitutional right to privacy, as encompassed by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. This landmark decision established that during the first trimester of pregnancy, the decision to abort must be left to the pregnant woman and her healthcare provider, without interference from the state. It further articulated a framework for subsequent trimesters, allowing states to regulate abortion to protect maternal health and, in the third trimester, to protect fetal life, with exceptions to preserve the life and health of the mother. The impact of Roe v. Wade was profound and immediate. It sparked a nationwide conversation about reproductive rights and access to safe and legal abortion. For proponents, the decision represented a victory for women's autonomy and the right to make personal healthcare decisions without governmental intrusion. It provided a legal framework that allowed millions of women to access safe and regulated abortion services, thereby potentially saving lives and protecting health. Conversely, Roe v. Wade also galvanized opponents who argued that the decision infringed upon the rights of the unborn and undermined traditional values. The ruling sparked decades of political and legal battles, with efforts to restrict or overturn Roe persisting to this day. The case became a focal point in American political discourse, influencing elections, judicial nominations, and public policy debates. Beyond its immediate legal and political ramifications, Roe v. Wade exemplifies the Supreme Court's role in interpreting constitutional rights in response to evolving societal norms and scientific advancements. It underscored the judiciary's power to shape public policy and influence social change, setting a precedent for subsequent decisions on issues of privacy, personal liberty, and equality. The trial of Al Capone, 1931. One of the most humorous moments in American court history occurred during the trial of the infamous gangster Al Capone. Known for his involvement in organized crime during the Prohibition era, Capone was eventually brought to trial for tax evasion in 1931. The trial itself was serious and consequential, but it contained a memorable moment of unintended comedy. During the proceedings, Capone's defense attorney, Michael Ahern, attempted to discredit the prosecution's key witness, an accountant named Fred Reis. Ahern grilled Reis on the stand, trying to prove that he was incompetent and unreliable. At one point, Ahern asked Reis how he had come to work for the government. Reis explained that he had taken and passed the civil service exam. Ahern, attempting to be clever, asked Mr. Reis, "Isn't it a fact that the reason you passed the civil service examination is because you cheated?" Reis, unfazed and likely unaware of the setup for Ahern's next move, simply replied, "No, sir." Ahern pressed further. "Well then, Mr. Reis, can you explain how you managed to pass the exam?" Reis replied with a straight face, "Because I studied for it." The simplicity and honesty of Reis's answer caused an outburst of laughter in the courtroom, completely undermining Ahern's line of questioning and adding a moment of levity to an otherwise intense trial. Even Judge James Herbert Wilkerson reportedly smiled at the exchange. This moment is remembered not only for its humor but also for highlighting the sometimes absurd nature of legal strategies and courtroom tactics. It serves as a reminder that even in the midst of serious legal battles, unexpected moments of comedy can emerge, providing a brief respite from the gravity of the proceedings. The trial of Martha Stewart, 2004. The trial of Martha Stewart in 2004 was a watershed moment in both legal and celebrity culture, captivating the public with its blend of high-profile personalities, allegations of insider trading, and the scrutiny of a lifestyle icon. Here's how it became an incredible moment in court. Martha Stewart, renowned for her homemaking empire and impeccable image, found herself at the center of a scandal involving insider trading. The case revolved around Stewart's sale of cloned system stock, just before its price plummeted due to a negative FDA decision on one of its key drugs. Stewart's sale of the stock, allegedly based on insider information from her broker, raised suspicions of illegal insider trading. The trial drew intense media coverage and public interest, not just for the legal intricacies but also for the symbolism of a prominent figure facing accusations of financial misconduct. Stewart's celebrity status added a layer of fascination, as the public watched to see how her carefully cultivated persona would fare under the harsh glare of a criminal trial. Key moments in the trial included Stewart's testimony and cross-examination, where her demeanor and statements were scrutinized for both legal implications and public perception. The prosecution presented evidence suggesting that Stewart had received insider information, while the defense argued that the charges were based on a misunderstanding and that Stewart had sold the stock based on a pre-existing agreement with her broker. The trial's outcome was also significant. Stewart was found guilty of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and making false statements to federal investigators. She was sentenced to 5 months in prison, 5 months of home confinement, and 2 years of probation. The verdict resonated beyond the courtroom, sparking debates about ethics in business, the responsibilities of corporate leaders, and the fairness of the legal system in high-profile cases. In addition to its legal implications, the trial of Martha Stewart underscored broader cultural themes, including the intersection of celebrity and accountability, the scrutiny of powerful individuals, and the public's fascination with the personal lives of public figures. It remains a landmark case that not only exposed the realities of financial wrongdoing but also highlighted the complexities of fame, reputation, and the pursuit of justice in the modern era. Michael Calvi Case 2019. The Michael Calvi case in 2019 was indeed an intriguing and notable moment in Russian legal history, primarily due to its implications for foreign investors and the complexities surrounding the rule of law in Russia. Michael Calvi, an American investor and founder of Bering Vostok, was detained in February 2019 on charges of embezzlement. The case centered around allegations that Calvi and several associates had embezzled 2.5 billion rubles, about $37 million, from Vostokny Bank, where Bering Vostok was a major shareholder. One of the reasons this case garnered significant attention was its impact on foreign investment in Russia. Bering Vostok was one of the largest and longest-standing foreign investment firms in Russia, with investments across various sectors. Calvi's arrest sent shockwaves through the international business community, raising concerns about the safety of investments and the impartiality of the Russian legal system. Moreover, the case was perceived by many as having political undertones, despite officials' claims that it was strictly a criminal matter. Some analysts viewed Calvi's arrest as a move to pressure Bering Vostok amid a shareholder dispute involving the bank's ownership structure. The legal proceedings themselves were closely watched, with Calvi and his associates spending months in pretrial detention before being released on bail. The trial proceedings were marked by allegations of procedural irregularities and concerns over fair treatment under Russian law. In July 2020, a Russian court ultimately handed down a suspended sentence to Calvi and his associates, along with fines, effectively allowing them to avoid further imprisonment but maintaining the stain of a criminal conviction. The resolution of the case highlighted the complexities and risks faced by foreign investors in Russia, where legal disputes can intersect with broader geopolitical and economic interests. The trial of Oscar Wilde 1895. The trial of Oscar Wilde in 1895 stands as a watershed moment, not only in legal history but also in the cultural and social landscape of Victorian England. Oscar Wilde, renowned as one of the most brilliant playwrights and wits of his time, found himself at the center of a scandal that would irreversibly alter his life and reputation. The trial arose from Wilde's relationship with Lord Alfred Douglas, known as Bosie, whose father, the Marquess of Queensberry, disapproved of their association. Queensberry publicly accused Wilde of being a posing sodomite, which prompted Wilde to sue him for criminal libel. However, Queensberry's defense produced evidence of Wilde's homosexual liaisons, leading to Wilde's arrest and prosecution for gross indecency under the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885. The trial unfolded amidst a fervent media circus, with newspapers avidly reporting every detail of the proceedings. Wilde, known for his flamboyant wit and literary genius, initially approached the trial with characteristic bravado. His sharp repartee during cross-examination, such as his famous statement, "I am here in my private capacity as Mr. Oscar Wilde," showcased his flair even in the face of grave accusations. However, as the trial progressed, evidence against Wilde mounted, including testimony from former lovers and acquaintances. The prosecution portrayed Wilde as a corrupter of youth, and despite his defense's efforts to portray his relationships as innocent friendships, the societal norms and legal standards of the time were stacked against him. Ultimately, Wilde withdrew his libel suit against Queensberry, a move that backfired as it allowed the evidence of Wilde's homosexuality to be used against him in a subsequent criminal trial. He was found guilty of gross indecency and sentenced to 2 years of hard labor, a punishment that devastated him physically, financially, and emotionally. The trial of Oscar Wilde was incredible not only for its legal implications, but also for its profound impact on public perception and the understanding of homosexuality in Victorian society. It exposed the harsh realities of the era's punitive laws against homosexuality and highlighted the tensions between personal freedom and societal morality. Moreover, Wilde's trial became a symbol of the persecution faced by LGBTQ individuals, both then and in subsequent decades. It marked a turning point in the public discourse on sexuality and censorship, influencing later movements for LGBTQ rights and challenging the rigid norms of Victorian England. The courtroom remains a powerful arena where society's most profound conflicts and dilemmas are played out. From the trial of O.J. Simpson to the impeachment of Bill Clinton, these incredible moments in court history reveal the complexity of human nature, the evolving norms of justice, and the enduring tension between individual rights and societal expectations. Each case, in its own way, has shaped public discourse, influenced legal practices, and left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. As we reflect on these landmark trials, we are reminded of the vital role of the judiciary in upholding the principles of justice, transparency, and accountability in an ever-changing world.